YouTubers? Brian Proctor back again, and I'm here with creating your own comic books from start to finish, part 3. And what we have here laid out in front of us is the lesson that we will learn today. So let's recap from parts 1 and 2. And I believe that we started out by saying, if you wake up one morning and say to yourself, hey, I want to do a comic book. So how do I start? So coming to it from the artist perspective or the writer perspective, you come up with a story. You either start writing your story or you start sketching out your story, and your dialogue comes later. Now with me, I've always been the artist type. I've always come up with thumbnails first, such as this, which we'll go over. I'll do my thumbnails first, then the dialogue comes after that, because I see it in my head. I see the motion, I see the characters, how they will go, and so forth. But the bad part about that is, when you draw the image, your word balloons. Where will your word balloons go? Because your dialogue is subject to change. So let's say, for instance, this guy, he's here and he's talking to this guy. So I have no real space for my word balloons. I'd have to crop something out or redraw it. And that's the whole point of thumbnails, is just a quick rough before you do your finished part. But that's something you have to think about, before you try to do any detail, is where my word balloon is going to go. How long is my dialogue? So I did this quick story a little while back, I guess maybe a year or so back, because I taught in my local college, and I think I said this in my other video, how to create comics. Now, I've been teaching for a long time art, and whenever people found out that I do comics as well, they always ask me to teach class on comics. So I've been teaching this for a long time, and kids have always loved comics, and now that the Marvel and DC universe has pretty much taken over the movie airways, people love comics even more. Kids love comics even more. So I'm doing this again, this time not in private class, this time for YouTube, so that anybody can see. So this is the best way that I can teach you, the easiest way, because growing up, I didn't have anybody to teach me how to do comics. I would just look at the books. I didn't even know people drew comics, for a long time. I just got the books and thought, it was printed that way. I didn't know there were actual people drawing it, but now that I know. So, okay, let's get started with this. Let's get into that. And we're going to get into some panel drawing as well. So this was the story that I came up with for that particular class. And this was the script I came up with. And I call it New Hero in Town. It's only, I think it's like 33 panels, really. But it was a starting point to show the kids what's going on. So first of all, let's start with viewpoint. A viewpoint. What is the viewpoint? The viewpoint is how you see something. You have 3 viewpoints. You have your close viewpoint, which is basically somebody close up. You have a medium viewpoint, which is seeing it, medium shot, not far away, but, like maybe half the body. And then you have your far shot, which you see far away. Now, let me check my camera and see if you guys can actually see this. Okay, you got your close up, your medium shot, and your far shot. Now that's just for panel writing as well, so you will know, what's going on, because in your script you're going to want to know what shot is what. Like, for instance, you have your 2 close-ups, you have your pretty much medium shots, and then another close-up and so forth, but it's all in the story. Now let me pause this for a second and pull out the rest of my notes. Okay, now let's talk about perspective for a second. Now, I've done a video on perspective. I don't know if this was actually in this or not, but this is part of the lesson that I did. So you have your perspective. You have 3 perspectives, just as you have 3 viewpoints. Your close, medium, and far. You have your 1 point, you have your 2 point, and you have your 3 point perspective. All of this is necessary when you do your script for your comic, because if you are not an artist, you're going to have to tell the writer. If you're a writer, you're going to have to tell the artist to how to frame your picture. Say looking down on a highway from above. That's your It could be a far shot, you know, 1 point perspective looking down. And you have to put all that into your script as well, so that your the artist will know exactly what you want and won't give you something that you didn't want. Because a lot of times, some artists may take leeway and try to do their own thing. Now, I don't want to get too much in perspective, but where is that page at? I have another page that shows a bit of perspective. All right, here we are with these pages, and I guess to break it down and make it as easy as possible, doing perspective shots is pretty much like taking a selfie, taking your camera and taking a selfie. Where are you going to aim the camera at to take this selfie? Now, I have the eyes right here. Let me see if I can zoom in on that, on this particular line here, because this is where your camera would be to take the picture of these guys. And to make everybody, I drew a bunch of people and they're on the same plane. You draw I drew the horizon line, or your eye line, or where the camera would be, the height of the camera, right across everybody's eyes, so they would all seem to be the same way. And if for this one down the bottom, you zoom out a little bit, the eye line, camera line, or horizon line, you can call it any three, usually it's called a horizon line, is higher than the heads. Now, an easy way to put everybody on the same plane is to draw a head, draw the size of the person's head, and then you can draw a few more heads below the line until they touch. Like this could be like 4 heads up, or it's 3 heads up touching the line. So each one of them has 3 heads up, and of course you would erase this, and that would put all the characters on line. You can put 5 heads or 6 heads above that, but that's a way to keep everybody straight, so one won't look like they're floating in the air. The same way as this, you have your eye line, which would be back here, and everything goes back here. Now, as I said before, I have a video on perspective. I'm not sure if this page is in it. These pages, they might be in it, but go back and check that out. I'm going to get into perspective right now. I'm trying to get into panel drawing, and then we'll continue the thing. But that's just a quick tip on perspective, so that when you start writing, you'll know what the artist needs or needs to tell the artist. Okay, now thumbnails. Thumbnails are a very important part of drawing, because as I said, I see the picture first and then I come back with the dialogue. So there always has to be a place for your word balloon, and that is what's called, with the little balloon area, little circle oval with your words, is basically called a word balloon. So with this, I would either have to put it down here, which is a bad place, put one up here. If these guys were talking, I couldn't put it down here for his first, because we start from the top and work our way down and across when we read. So I would have to readjust this to do a word balloon, but these are just thumbnails. This is just a rough sketch. This was the finished picture. So basically in my head, I saw 2 guys jogging, and this guy is out of breath, which this symbolizes the sweat that's coming off of his brow, and then later on you see the actual, stress on the guy's face. But you don't want to start out by drawing detail first, because you'll start doing all this detail, and then with this one you realize, oh, I have no place for my word balloons, especially if this guy is saying a lot. So always start out with your thumbnails first, and as I said, a thumbnail is just a rough drawing of where you want things to be placed. And the same for the lower one. And I need to watch the camera so that I won't be off on you guys. Same thing, here's my thumbnail. This is just a different angle of these 2 guys running and discussing. And here's my rough again, and this is my finish. Now here's a good place. I left enough space to do the word balloons, but if this guy had a lot to say, this guy just said, I'm tired, that wouldn't take up much. But if he had a lot to say about getting up early, exercising, eating right, whatever, it'd be no way. I'd have to either cut his face off or put the words behind him, which is kind of a no-no for comics. So that's just something to think about when you start your drawing, and you have your ideas and you start your roughs. It's good to have this, but before you even start your finish, you need to know where your words are going to go. So best thing to do is thumbnails, then work on your script, and then start doing your finish with room to do it. And a lot of times you can eliminate a lot of detail because your words are going to cover it up. And I remember when I first started, a lot of books I did, I was just doing detail, crazy detail, and all the leaves in the trees, and the clouds and birds and so forth. And then I started to put my words in, and I realized I'm covering all that up. So I mean, that could have been saved a lot of time if I actually had someone to tell me what to do in the beginning. All right, so now let's go with this story. Before that, I want to work on some panels, just do some quick panel shapes for you guys so you can understand a little bit about panels, because these are just squares here. I didn't do any fancy panels. So let's work on that right now. I think this is going to be the only thing I have to draw, so it won't take too much time. Okay, so what is a panel? The panel, let's just say it's a small window that tells part of the story in a bigger window, shall we say. Say like, if this is my comic book page, and I'll use a darker pen. Comic book page. And usually in the page, you have several panels. And it's just a box. Boxes. And each box tells just a little piece of an overall story. Now, these are your panels in here. These is called gutters. Whatever little bit of art that runs down into this area, which is called a gutter, just gets erased anyway. So you want to focus your main art usually somewhat in the center of your panel, and then you have your word balloons that come down like that. Now, one thing about panel shapes that I learned, it took me a minute to learn that, is that each shape has a different meaning, and I thought it was just square in the beginning. But let's just say you use and panels work in conjunction with perspective shots. Let's just say we do a narrow panel like that. Now, being narrow, that makes you feel confined. So if you draw the character in this panel, he could be confined, maybe scared because the panel is not open. So it doesn't give him much room to run around. The same thing with a big open panel. And you drew a character here. That can make the character feel free and open because you have so much room to run around in. Another thing about the perspective, let's just say we did another narrow panel and we drew the guy. Let's say it's a down shot like that. That kind of makes him feel that, it gives that feeling of, put the head down a little bit more. It gives a feeling of lack of power because you're over him. The camera is way above him, so you're looking down at him, and that makes him look small. So you can do like a creature or something up here, maybe looking at him, and that makes the reader feel small as well because of the narrowness of the panel and the down shot. The same way you can do an up shot. Make it a little bigger. That could also make you feel, the reader, feel that you are also small because of the guy is so big. The hero, the villain, the monster, whatever, because you're down below this guy. That gives you that more of the powerless feel. So panels can actually work, I don't want to say against your story, for your story. You don't have to do so much to show the reader what's going on, or try to convince him or make him feel what's going on. Panels do that. The same way is if you do something like that, that's like a broken panel, or like something, all hell is breaking out. like that, because it's just a broken starry panel. And you can have panels any shape you want, but each shape really represents something. The long, narrow shape, like that. That could be a long shot of a city. That's your far shot in your city, and you can have either the sun or the moon or whatever, like that. And that helps you establish your, what's the word? Why am I running out of words? Establish your setting, or where you are, your background, your city, your planet, or whatever, by the shapes of the panels. You can do round panels. You can do, I can say triangle panel, any shape that you want. Well, number one, because it's your book. Number two, because you want to give it that feeling, but you don't want to overdo it. Let's just say this is your comic book page. So you have your square panel here, your rectangle panel here, you have a circle here, your broken panel here, your triangle here, your, what is it, octagon, hexagon here, and it just gets crazy. Panel like that, and an oval panel, and all of these. It's too much for your reader. You always want your panels to be able to flow, so that your readers can keep up with it. You want them to enhance the story, not take over for the story. So you don't want to go too crazy with your panels. And we'll get back into more panels probably later. But let's get into the story. And as I was teaching, I said this was a summer course for kids at my local college. I gave them a story to draw. And this is the story. I came up with the story as well. This was like on the fly. We were teaching. I taught them anatomy. I taught them the perspective and panels. And at the end, it's like, okay, we're going to come up with a story. I'll give you the quick story because a lot of kids have trouble writing. And then you do the actual drawings. So I did it myself. So the story is, I'll give you the quick, this is the hero, and he has a dog. Of course, it's a dog. I'm not a big dog drawer. And this is the bully, and this guy was bullying all the kids in school. This is the high school kids, and this guy decided he had enough, and he was going to meet the bully out here at this old abandoned chemical plant. Maybe it's not abandoned, this old chemical plant, and they were going to have it out. They were going to fight it out to see, just because he got tired of him. He just wanted to, if I beat you, you leave the rest of the kids alone, type of thing. So right here, I believe he's telling the dog it'll be all right, he'll be right back. And then they run up to each other under this big old chemical tank. Let me check my camera to see if you guys see what I'm doing. I'm saying now, he runs up to this guy at the big old chemical tank, and there's always chemicals. That's the easy way of getting out to give people powers, chemicals. So they're about to throw their first punch, and then lightning comes. Lightning strikes the chemical tank, and kaboom. Now, hours later or so, the boy wakes up covered in chemical next to his dog. It starts to rain because it was going to storm anyway. So he picks the dog up. Let me check my camera again. And he carries the dog home. So later on, he wakes up, headache, feeling bad. And the dog, well, no, he hears the dog. If I'm not mistaken, I'll read the script in a second. He hears the voice saying something like, "Are you all right?" or something like that. And he wakes up and he's like, "Oh, you can talk." And then he has a flashback of what happened at the chemical plant. So there's more discussion, and the boy realizes he has some kind of power. And I believe he's saying, and I'll read the script in a second, to the dog, "You know what this means? We could be superheroes," I believe. I haven't read the script in a minute. So the boy works furiously to design a costume. And he asks the dog, "Do you want a costume as well?" And the dog's like, "No, I'm cool." So the boy dons his costume. You see the arm here. And I think the dog's like, "Oh, yeah, it's great." And more dialogue. And then the next page, close to the last page, is the boy on the rooftop, very close up of the eyes, looking down. And everybody's looking up and pointing, "Oh, look at that guy up on the roof." So then he's up on the roof showing off, his new costume, saying he's a new hero. And then suddenly in the background, with the word balloon, the villain shows up. So he turns around to look quickly, and it turns out to be the bully that he was going to fight, because not only did he get powers, the bully got powers as well. So at that point, that starts the story. So that was the rough that I came up with for the students. I had it in my head. I did not do the dialogue. So we'll go over the dialogue real quick so that you guys can understand. Panel 1 is a far shot. It's a warehouse, cloudy sky. Storm is approaching, lightning flashing. So you have all those characters in there. Panel 2, you have a close shot, warehouse with the sign, danger, keep out, and the name of the company. And these are the things that you would write, I don't know if you can see that, so that your artist would be able to follow. You need to give your artist as much detail as possible. If you're not the artist, if you're not doing the drawings, give him as much detail as possible so that he can stay, or so that he can draw exactly what it is you see. Panel 3 is a medium shot, the boy with dog, and the wind is blowing. So I indicated the wind blowing with his hair and his jacket. His tail could have been blowing, and maybe some, let's just say, like some paper flying in the background to indicate, you know, wind blowing. Panel 4 is a medium shot of the bully, and the wind is blowing, so I did indicate paper here, right there, blowing. Panel 5 is a close-up. Yeah, on boy's face, angry. I'm here. It all ends tonight. This is what the boy is saying. Let me make sure you guys can see that and keep up. So the word balloon would probably cut some of his hair off because it's not that much dialogue. Panel 6 is a close-up of the bully's face. He's calm. I didn't think you had the guts to show up. Panel 7. Medium shot, boy and dog. Stay here, boy. So, you know, he petted the dog. You know, you got to have the face like it's going to be all right. Panel 8 is a far shot. Two boys running at each other, ready to fight. Huge chemical tank in the background. So we have all those elements, and you see the storm is getting worse because of the lightning strikes. And I keep standing up to check out my camera so that you guys can stay with me. Panel 9 is a close-up. On the two, as they both throw a punch, not connecting yet. So that's like that freeze frame, that matrix second where they slow down. Panel 10 is another close-up. Lightning strikes down from the clouds. Panel 11, medium shot. Lightning hits chemical tank. So I have it here where lightning hits the chemical tank, and it goes all the way around the chemical tank. And panel 12, where's 12? Which would be a full panel. I had a full panel for 12. Huge explosion and kaboom. So the full panel, I don't know how I would have had that. I think I might have, it wouldn't have been a full page. So this is full panel up to kaboom. 12, 13. And I said, it's been a minute since I actually looked at this and read this. I dug this up today. I knew I had it. I found it, and I said, okay, now I can do part 3 on this video. Panel 13, medium shot. Boy wakes up on the ground, covered with goo. Dog is lying next to him, unconscious. Are you okay? So I guess he wakes up and says, are you okay? Somewhere in there. It would be small writing, you know, kind of broken up, because he just wakes up from all that, whatever happened. Panel 14 is a far shot. Silhouette of the boy walking with unconscious dog in his arms. It is raining. Boy and dog are glowing. Okay. So that indicates the glow. He doesn't know that because I guess he's still kind of out of it. And the reason why I blacked it was so that you could see the glow. So if it was in color, then you would see the glow more. But as I say, these are rough sketches. This is not even set right for dialogue. Panel 15 is a medium shot. Boy wakes up in his bed. Voice says, how do you feel, master? Boy says, my head is killing me. Panel 16, medium shot. Boy sits up quickly. You can talk. Panel 17, the far shot. Boy has flashbacks of explosion and being covered with chemical, glowing chemical. 18, what is that? 17, 18. It's a close-up of boy face. I remember the lightning hitting the tank. So that's the little flashback in the background. And it still would have to have Never forget, room for your word balloon. 19, medium shot, boy and dog. If it gave you the ability to speak, I wonder what I can do, what it did to me. So he's jumping out of bed. 20, another medium shot, boy steps out of bed. I feel like I can, and then it's the space. 21 is a full panel of boy doing. Okay, I don't know what that was. I guess that's his power, lightning maybe. As I say, I did not really go into detail about like the names and the, where they live at and the ages and the school and so forth. That's part of the writing process. 22, close up, boy holding dog face. Do you know what this means? I'm a superhero. 23, dog. Now all you need is a costume. 24, it's a far shot, which is not really a far shot. Boy in foreground, dog in background. Boy, you're right. Let me check my camera again. There's a dark area coming from over here. Not enough light. 25. That's a far shot. Boy sits at drawing table. Dog sitting next to boy on the floor. Floor has lots of balled up papers on it. Boy is holding up paper showing the dog the latest drawing. Boy, dialogue. How about this one? Dog. No, that's too Batmanish. So, what number was that? 26? 25. So it would be, I guess you would have like a little Batman character looking costume somewhere here. And then the dog was like, no, that's too Batmanish. 26, that was 25. 26, medium shot. Boy, how about you? Do you want me to design you a costume as well, dog? No, thanks. Later that evening, and that would be captioned, put somewhere between 26 and 27. 27, close. Boy, close, a boy's hand only in foreground, dog in background, looking up, dog, sweet. I guess he's saying sweet costume. 28, close, dog's face. What will you call yourself? 29, extreme close-up, boy's eyes only, and he names himself whatever. I don't know because I didn't really name him. 30, the far shot. People on the street looking and pointing up. 31, medium shot. Hero on rooftop, standing in heroic pose. Full body shot. Fear not, good people. My name is blank. I don't know what his name is. I'm the city's new hero. 32. Close up on hero's face. Black silhouette in the background. But how can there be a hero without a supervillain? How can there be a superhero without a supervillain? And that's this guy's talking. Check my camera again. And 33. And notice how I chopped the panel up to fit him. You know, I put him a little above the character, looking down. This is why I chopped up this, so it'll fit. And it kind of gives him that I'm trapped kind of feeling because the panel is so close to him, and it opens up over the hero as well. So that works in two ways. 33, full shot of bad guy floating in the air. Costume, evil smile on his face. Now, if you go back from the very beginning, this guy designed his costume. He sat down to design his costume. At the very beginning, this guy, he had the same thing. Only thing he did was paint a skull and crossbones on his t-shirt. I think he gave him a little belt and put some glasses on him, and that was it. So that is how you would do your thumbnails once you get your script together. Now after that, you would go back and do the finished product, leaving room for your dialogue. Since I know number four, what they would say, bully, wind blowing. Okay, so there's no dialogue here. Number 5. Let's go with that close up of boy's face. I'm here, it all ends tonight. So if I did that, I would probably shift him over with this one, put that there, and put that here. So I don't want to chop up this much of his face, so I definitely would shift that over and maybe start him Where's my pencil? My red pencil, so you guys can see a little better. I have so much junk all over this table. I'll just use a drawing pencil or color pencil. So I would probably start his face maybe over here, like that, and then down, and then give him, you know, the angry look, like that, and then have room. And this could be just either blank, or because the wind is blowing, trash or something flying in the background. So like the Japanese animation, a lot of times they use animation, manga, they don't put background in. They'll just do the face or the body and then do the word balloon. But when they do put background in, they go crazy with the detail. All right, so speaking of Japanese manga or manga, depending on what side of the tracks you came from, this is a, I'm not a big manga fan, you know, or reading. I love the movies, but the reading part, because it's weird because they start from the back and they go forward, and it's hard to for me to keep up in the beginning. So anyway, talking about the panels, you know, they, as I say, these guys, they use very limited background when they don't have to. And when they do, they do their all. So we have a big panel here, and I'm trying to look at this and look at my phone at the same time, you know, to show the two girls. And then they have the rectangle turned out, but they have a really close up of the guy, and it's kind of a down shot. So that gives him, gives him that lot of creepy look, like where you're stuck. You can't get away from this guy because you're in this, such a small panel. I'll just show you a couple pages. And here again, we have the narrow panel filled. And these guys, they will cut up a face quickly, you know, and they'll use a lot of word balloons and they'll chop up a face quickly, but that's their style. And then here too, you have an angled panel, which gives you the feeling that she's stuck. She's in a small area. She can't get out. And I believe she's tied up. She's tied up in the bed. And then you have your panel in the background, small panel. The guy sitting there, smaller panel, I think it's something on a book. Your narrow panel again, your narrow one with the footsteps looking down. It's like you can't get away because he's walking. And then you have your big panel right here of the guy coming up on the girl, and I believe she is tied up in the bed. So panels work in not only telling a story, but it relays emotions too. You know, without words. If you do it right, you can get away with it. So I think on that note, you guys should be working on your script and your thumbnails. And I may do some detail on this. I may just pick this up and do detail on it. And I had another page, and I'm not sure if this was this guy because this was a while back. I might have changed that character into this young boy here. And after he got his powers, because, you know, if you get superpowers tomorrow, you can't go out and build an Iron Man suit. So I thought about, you know, what type of suit could the guy wear? And it's more like the stretched spandex kind of pants and a vest with a belt. And he has a mask. And because he wears glasses, you know, I kept the glasses on him. And he had like the old, was it like the wrestler mask on to cover his face up. So yeah, that's just something you need to think about too, because if you have a character, you know, like this poor kid, you know, in the ghetto or whatever, you know, you get superpowers, and your next panel is this guy's got a armored suit on with a flying dog or armored suit. You'd say, man, how did he get that? Unless lightning hit him and he became a trillionaire, there's no way. So something else for you guys to think about. And okay, so on that one, I think, have I covered enough for you guys? Go back real quick and go through my notes. I don't want to leave you guys out, leave anything out for you guys. So I think that's going to do it for this short video. And yeah, I will be back with part 4. So you guys keep drawing and look out for part 4. I will be back later. All right, I'm out. All right, so I am not out yet because I just went through what I just filmed and I found out that I left something out, something I think is kind of important. It's about panels. So when you do your panels, and this is something I did in the background, I'll show you in a second. When you do your panels, I always do a rectangle shape to represent the 11 by 17 size board. I don't draw a square and then try to put panels in because it's not going to work out. So the one thing about panels are, in your story, you're going to have something that is more important than something else. Let's see if I can find something here on one of these pages. So in all of this, there is something, this one would be more important than the rest of the panels because he's showing his power. So that one would take more precedence than the rest of them. So this would warrant a bigger panel. So whenever you're doing a story, you know your panels. I'm throwing my paper off. You know your panels, and then you say to yourself, which one is the most important? So in designing panels, I would say something like this. These two hold equal weight. This one will hold more weight. So I'll make this one maybe that big. This one, I can use that. I can chop some of that off. I don't need this whole, I don't need all this extra space here. So I would put that one here. Then the dog one would be kind of small like that because it's just a dog. And then that's the boy with his powers. So this guy would be here. And he's showing his powers. And that would be a full panel because I want you to see, I want the reader to see, and then maybe, you know, something in the background, a door or something. It wouldn't be a lot in the background, but it's just his bedroom. So that would be the bigger panel. And I would want you guys to see that. I want you to know that that stands out as the biggest frame. Then I would have the guy and the dog, maybe just the dog's head, and the guy holding the dog's head like that. That's all I would need for this. It could be smaller than that. And then the words here. This one, as I said, I don't need the whole dog body. I could just have the head and the neck. And then the dialogue here. And then this one, I would keep that whole panel. And the boy would be here. And the dog would be here, and you know, his room, and then the dialogue. But when every time you have a page, you say to yourself, how many panels am I going to have on my page? And usually you don't want 6 is great. When you start going 8, 10, 15, you get too much. You're getting too much because when you're doing that many, you have to start breaking them down so small that you're losing something. You're losing the reader when you got a face here, or a little car here, or something there, or something there. You know, I've seen it done, but to me, it's just a little too much. So 6 is good. You can have 1 if you do 1 full page. That's fine. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. I wouldn't really try to go more than 8. Now I used to do, in telling my story, sometimes I'd have to put more, but I made sure that it worked out. So I pull this out. Behind this, let me show you guys this. And this was a story that I did long ago. Before I do that, just make sure the one panel is the one you focus on. So when you flip the page in a comic book, your eyes immediately drawn to that panel there. You know, it catches the reader, and then you start reading the rest that's around it. So you just got to think of that. Sometimes you have to design, you know, a page several times. And I'll do this whenever, you know, I work on a page. I say this one here, this one there, this one there. And if that doesn't work out, I'll say, okay, I've got to have one big one here, this one here, this one here. And you'll probably do this a number of times before you get it. And it's got to flow however, you know, your reader. So you got to have to remember that. So this is a story that I did a while ago, years ago. And you can actually see that the paper is turning yellow because it is that old. And it was kind of a road warrior type story. It was not really post-apocalypse, but it was at that time. It's like after the apocalypse, and they started rebuilding, and there were cities scattered here and there. And these panels were, this is your road warrior type of guy. And if you don't know what a road warrior is, go back and look at the movie. he had his old Road Warrior car, and he had a vicious name. You know, whenever people knew he was around, they were scared. So this old lady had this little golf cart, and she was taking food to her grandkids. You know, and these biker guys, you know, came along and they slowed her down, as you can see in that panel, and jumped on it. And she had a shotgun, and this guy was wrestling the shotgun away from the old lady, and she was trying to kick him off. And this guy, he rode up, and then he reached out and he grabbed his belt. Let's see. Let me pull this up for you guys. And it's not about the story, it's about the panels. And then he drugged the guy off. He grabbed the guy and drug her off. And then the lady was cool with the shotgun. And this guy was looking, you know, at this guy drag him away. And she pulled the shotgun out and shot this guy. And there's a smaller panel under here where the motorcycle went and it crashed into something and the lady kept driving. But with this, as I say, you design what panel is more important than the other. And this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 panels on this one. So with the next one, after the belt broke here, the guy was dragging him and his belt broke and he got up and his face is all scratched up, and the lady came up behind him with the golf cart and hit him. He's like crying, he's like, oh no, and he get hit and blood on the windshield splashes. She's happy, and I don't remember what happens in this other panel. And I guess the most important panel was probably this one down here. Actually, as I say, I don't remember what was down here, but you know, your bigger panel are the ones that hold the most action. And this was early. This is when the guy jumped on the lady's golf cart and she was driving crazy trying to get him off. And then this is when the guy came and he flashed his lights and was beeping his horn. And to look back, you get a close-up of the guy, and this is the most important because it's the biggest panel. He hit the guy, and the guy flipped over on his windshield, and he clicked the button. His washers came on because he left blood. He hit him, clicked the windshield wipers, it squirted water, came off, washed his car off. So that one and that one kind of the most important panels. I have no idea what they would have been saying. And then this one, this was later on when he actually reached this hotel that he was in. He stole somebody's card key and got in, was taking a shower, and I think he had scars and stuff all over his chest, and this was reminiscing something. And they said he had stole somebody's luggage, and he was just laying there with a cigarette. And it was 2:40 a.m., 2:47, and the cigarette had burned out on his face. I don't know if he was sleeping or not, but he got up, spit the cigarette out, and then he stole some guy's luggage, as I said, and his card key. And so he went through the guy's luggage, and he had a cow shirt from here. You see it? He had an old cow shirt. So when he was going to the bar, this guy was like, hey, nice shirt. And then the girl was like, hey, nice shirt. And everybody was saying that nice shirt thing, and it went to the bar. So the biggest one, or the draw, would probably have been this one or that one, because he was reminiscing, and then sex always sells. So, you know, you do half naked shots, that always sells. This one was when he didn't reach the gambling table. So he went, it was kind of like a Vegas type hotel. This was the round table where people were gambling, and this was like a rough, I don't know if you can see it anymore, with the round table and then people sitting around, you know, gambling. And this guy, he's like I don't know if he's like the owner or he's like the big shot, you know, with his bodyguards around him. And this guy had been cheating. So there's a gun on the table somewhere, and he gave him like a few seconds to run. So the guy ran, and this one would be the big panel here. But I did chop a little one up right here to show the guy reaching for the gun. So he shot him 3 times, I believe, and he fell on the Road Warrior guy, and he got blood on his shirt. So he saw the guy, and he said, hey, you feel like sitting down gambling? So that's when he sat down, and the Road Warrior guy ended up showing that this guy was cheating and told him to shoot himself, and it just kind of started, you know, an all-out gang thing. But panel designs, that's the thing. Whenever you do your thumbnails, where did that go? You have to figure out where you're going to place your panels. Which panel is the most important and is going to get the most room to show off the picture. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's 8 panels. So I tried really not to go over 8. But little panels like this, you can do, because it's just him reaching for the gun that's on the table, and you would see that somewhere over here. And that's just some guys who's aiming the gun with his security guards, and these other guys gambling, and he's just running off. So that is the last little piece that I wanted to show you about panels. And will I ever finish this story? Probably not, because I've got dozens more that I've never finished. So anyway, with that in mind, I will see you guys later for real now. All right, I'm out.